I've flown with my dog across international borders twice. First from Kyrgyzstan to Georgia, then from Georgia here to Almaty, where we live now. The first time I was terrified, not of the flight itself, but of everything I didn't know. What documents do you actually need? Will the country accept him? Will the airplane even take you? The second time I was still nervous. Flying with a dog is never easy, but I knew what I was doing. Every country has its own rules, and your might look a little different from mine, but the core process is mostly the same everywhere. Georgia uses the same import rules as the European Union, so if you are flying anywhere into Europe, this is going to look almost identical. If you have a dog and a move ahead of you, let me save you some of that fear. Let me back up. This is Harry. He's my dog. We called him Gary. He's also a family member. I brought him home when he was 3 months old. He's grown up since then, but in so many ways he's still that same puppy. We've been through a lot together. Different homes, different cities, hard days, good days. We always figure it out. Sometimes I had to leave him with someone for a few days, and even that always felt too long. So when I found out that this time we were going to be apart for 3 full months, I didn't know how to do that. Here's what happened. We were moving from Kyrgyzstan to Georgia. I could fly out anytime. Harry couldn't. Kyrgyzstan is what the EU calls a red zone country for rabies. To bring the dog from the red zone into the EU or into Georgia, which uses the same rules, you have to do a rabies titer test, send it to a lab, and then wait 3 months from the day the lab gets the blood. The full 3 months before you can take your dog with you. And the clock had to start before I left. I'd be in Tbilisi with my family while Harry stayed behind. I'd never moved countries with a dog. I'd never done this with any animal. The whole thing felt like trying to find my way through a fog. Once I started figuring out what I actually need to do, it broke down into 6 steps. 6 things that all had to happen in roughly the right order or roughly the right timeline. Miss one, mess up the timing on another, and the whole thing can fall apart. Here's what they were. Step 1. The international standard microchip. Without it, none of this works. The chip goes under the skin near the shoulder. The needle is bigger than I expected. Harry didn't flinch. I did. Step 2 and 3. The annual vaccine and the rabies vaccine. If your dog's annual shot is overdue or missing, you have to do it first. And there has to be a gap before the rabies shot. Then, after the rabies vaccine, you wait at least a month before you can do the test that proves it worked. And every date has to be exact. Meet the interval and the lab can reject your test, and you start over. Step 4 was the hardest. The Titer test proved that the rabies vaccine actually took. Kyrgyzstan doesn't have a lab that runs tests, so the blood has to be done at a clinic, prepared and shipped abroad. Standard processing was about 2 weeks. Express was twice as much. I choose standard. And then, when the results came back, things almost fell apart. The certificate was a physical document in Moscow, and I needed to get it from the lab to me in Tbilisi. So I ordered a courier. He marked delivery as completed and disappeared. He hadn't delivered anything. I almost cried. I chatted to the clinic, the courier service, the courier himself, and nothing happened. Eventually, I found out that he left the certificate back at the lab. I had to ask a friend to go in person and ship it to me through a different service. Thankfully, I have contacts in Moscow. If you are flying with a dog, hear to me on this. Do not assume the paperwork will travel safely. Track it like it's passport, because effectively it is. Step 5. The carrier. The big plastic crate that arrives in the cargo hold. Order it early. You want your dog to sleep in it, eat near it, get used to it, not see it for the first time at the airport. Check your airline size and weight limits. Mine was 50 kilograms for dogs plus crate. We weighted in at 51. They let us fly anyway. Step 6. The State Veterinary Service. They issue the export certificate for your dog. You bring your passport, the dog's passport, with all the vaccination and the chip sticker and your Titer test result. The certificate they give you is valid for a maximum of 3 days. So this happens right before you fly. Don't book a flight on a Monday or a Sunday. Most state veterinary services are closed on weekends and you'll get stuck. 6 steps, months of planning, hundreds of dollars, and once all of that was done, there was only one thing left. The flight. There was no direct flight from Bishkek to Tbilisi. We had to cross the border first, had to taxi 5 hours to Almaty and fly out from there. At the airport, I gave Harry a mild sedative. They invited him in his carrier. Then a man from the airline took him through a door. At first, I wasn't allowed to follow, but the carrier had to go through an X-ray, and they couldn't get Harry out and back without me, so they brought me in to do it. I lifted him out, watched the carrier go through, settled him back in, and then I had to leave him there. The whole flight, I couldn't sit still. The first time I'd flown into Tbilisi, I'd seen dogs come out on the baggage belt with the suitcases. It was a medium-sized dog. That's what I expected. I stood there, watching bag after bag, no hurry. I started to panic. Then I turned and saw him being wheeled in from the side door. They brought him separately. He was a little dazed, but he was okay. They checked and photocopied every document and finally let us go. The next day, I couldn't get out of bed. Everything I'd been holding for those weeks just collapsed. My body needed to know it was over. The second time was different, not because flying with a dog had gotten easy, but because I wasn't guessing anymore. Georgia, unlike Kyrgyzstan, isn't a red zone for rabies. So this time, no Titer test, no 3 months wait apart. We still needed a fresh vet certificate. His vaccination still had to be current, and setting the ticket itself still meant the airline's office in person or back and forth email with the sales team. But this time I knew that going in. The biggest surprise this time was Harry himself. He'd put on weight in Tbilisi. We'd had him on a diet for a month before the flight, and he was still about 3 kilos over my airline's allowance. I was sure they'd push back at check-in. They didn't. They let us through. Because he's a big dog, they don't put him on the belt. They wheeled him out to me separately, just like the first time. He was very nervous, but he handled the flight well. And this time, when I got him back, I wasn't waiting at the wrong belt. I wasn't panicking. I knew what was coming, and he and I were going home together. If you are watching this because you're about to do what I did, fly internationally with your dog for the first time, I want to leave you with 2 things. 1, it is going to be harder than you expect. Not the flight itself, the not knowing. Almost everything I felt the first time was the weight of doing something I'd never done before. That part will pass. 2, it's going to be worth it. The first time I flew with Harry, I couldn't get out of the bed the day after. The second time was so much easier. One day your second time will come too. Thanks for watching. Bye.